Alright guys, I am back once again with another deck profile for Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days on Nintendo Switch. This time we got version 1 of my Stoicheia Lianorn Masques deck. So version 1, everything through the additional special set, so through a fraction of the booster set 11. However, this deck does not use anything from that last DLC pack, so if you've only bought up through the second additional card pass, you still can play this deck. But this is the second variant of Lianorn that I have built, focused on her masks form. And this version of the deck still lets you boost your Vanguard with your entire back row, but it actually allows you to perform potentially up to 5 attacks in one turn. So as always, we'll be going through the deck, and then we'll show it off in one card fight. So starting first with the Ride deck, we have our Grade 0 starter, which is Announcing Wind of Spring, Corfi. So when she's rode upon, if you win second, draw a card. Same old starter as always. Next for the Grade 1, we have Budding of Pleasant Sounds, Gracia. So her auto ability, when this unit is rode upon by Brilliant Tune Rectina, you may call this card to Rearguard Circle. So a +1 on your board helps fill up that back row. It does cost you 1 card out of your soul. But once she's on your Rearguard Circle, she has her continuous ability that says during the battle this unit boosted a Vanguard, this unit gets power plus 5,000. So she will be a 13k booster once you get her onto your board. Next for the Grade 2, we have Brilliant Tune Rectina. So her auto ability, when this unit is rode upon by a unit with Lianorn in its card name, you can Soul Blast 1 to choose a Grade 1 or less card from your drop and call it to Rearguard Circle. So a revival of any Grade 1 or less from your drop onto your board for the cost of a Soul Blast 1, which this deck can get very Soul Blast heavy, but this is still a helpful skill letting you revive booster onto your board. Your primary target for this is going to be Prosper, because Prosper skill will then go off and let you Soul Charge, so you can make up for the cost of this ability. So that's the primary combo you want to pull off with this card if you can get Prosper into your drop zone by then. But then she also has her continuous ability when she's on Rearguard the Circle that says if your back row has 3 or more Rearguards, this unit gets boost. So she doesn't end up on Rearguard Circle very often. Technically you could revive her from the drop if you wanted to, but most of the time you have better targets for that, so this ability isn't really used. So then lastly for the Grade 3, we have Grand March of Full Bloom, Lianorn. So she has her activate ability that says once per turn, you can counterblast 1 to draw a card and choose a card from your hand and call it to Rearguard Circle or discard it. So it's just a counterblast 1 for a +1, but you do have to have something in your hand ready to superior call, so you don't have to do a discard. So this is a pretty good ability just to help your card advantage, even if you're going to go into Lianorn Masques as soon as possible. Then I still like using this ability if I have the extra counterblast to do so before I do that, just to gain that extra card in my hand. And then she also has her auto ability that says when this unit attacks, you can Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from hand, and boost this unit with all of your back row stand units with boost. And if you boosted this unit with 3 or more units, this unit gets drive +1 until end of that battle, and at the end of that battle, you choose 2 of your back row Rearguards and stand them. So there are some situations with this deck where you don't want to immediately go into your masks form, specifically when you can't get your Persona Ride off on the same turn, since Lianorn Mask really relies on that Persona Ride to hit some better numbers. So if you go first on turn 3, sometimes you might actually want to sit on this Lianorn and just go ahead and use this skill for that one turn. So your Vanguard will be hitting some very big numbers against a Grade 2 opponent, since you'll be boosting her with your entire back row. And you'll get that triple drive, so you have more trigger pressure as well. Now you will only be able to get 3 attacks that turn, since you'll be restanding your back row units only. But, 3 big numbered attacks against a Grade 2 opponent can be better than potentially 5 weak attacks from Lianorn Masques. So if you can't get that Persona Ride off on turn 3, I do like sitting on this card for that one turn. Now again, she is another Soul Blast cost, which Soul gets very, very tight in this deck. So do be mindful of that and make sure you have that resource ready to go on that turn if you are going to use this ability. But you usually only end up using this skill once per game, if that, since you do want to go ahead and go into your mask form. When speaking of which, moving on to the main deck, first off for the grade 3s, we have 4 copies of Servitude of Funeral Procession Lianorn Masques. So she has her continuous ability that says this card can only be written from a grade 3 with Lianorn in its card name. And then she also has her activate ability that says once per turn, you can remove a card with Lianorn in its different card name from this unit from your hand, soul, or drop. To choose a grade 1 or less card from your drop, call it to rearguard circle, then choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. So we're not playing any extra copies of OG Lianorn in the main deck, so that means this ability is going to be a once per game ability only, since the only card that you can use to pay this cost will be the Lianorn from your ride deck. So it is only once per fight, but you do get to revive a grade 1 or less unit on your board while taking out one of your opponent's rearguards. So it's a +1 to you and a -1 to your opponent, for potentially free if that copy of Lianorn has already been soul blasted out before you remove it, which most of the time it will be with all the soul blast costs in this deck. So you can only use it once, but it is a very helpful ability in just helping you set up your board while also picking apart your opponents. And then she also has her auto ability that says when this unit attacks, you choose up to 3 of your back row stand units with boosts, and boost this unit. And if you boosted with 3 or more units at the end of that battle, you can counterblast one to choose 2 of your rearguards and stand them. So just like with OG Lianorn, this ability allows you to boost with your entire back row. So Lianorn Masques should be swinging for some very large numbers. And then at the end of that battle, she lets you stand any 2 of your rearguards for the cost of a counterblast. Now, unlike with OG Lianorn, this ability is not limited to your back row, so that means you can restand both your front row rearguards potentially with this ability, giving you possibly up to 5 attacks in one turn. Alternatively, you can use this to stand a column, so you only get 4 attacks that turn, but you could potentially be hitting some better numbers, since that 4th attack will be able to be boosted. Which, the one thing about this card is if you don't get your Persona Ride off, your front row rearguards attacking unboosted are going to be hitting like a limp dick. So you do want to be as consistent as possible with getting that Persona Ride. And if you do miss it, then restanding the column is usually the better option to go with, since you'll be hitting for some much better numbers that way than doing just 5 poking attacks, which may not even be able to hit at all, especially if your opponent gets a damage trigger. So you are having to give up the triple drive that you can get with OG Lianorn, but you can increase your overall offense to quite a big degree, getting those 5 attacks in, if you do have the right setup in order to strengthen them up to high enough numbers to where that can actually be a threat. So definitely a different take on this deck, but you know, when you can get your pieces together and things line up, it can hit pretty hard and be pretty dangerous for your opponent. So next up for the grade 3s, we just have 2 copies of our nationless normal order, Masque of Hydragrum. So there's no cost to play it, and lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck to choose up to 1 unit card with Dragon Tree or Mask and its card name from among them, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your deck. So as always, there's a chance that this could whiff. The only targets for it in this deck are Lianorn Masques and the grade 2 Dragon Tree Wretch, so you got 8 targets in total. So hopefully it can help you find some of your combo pieces, but even if it doesn't, it does set it up in the drop zone for you to use its activate ability. That says if you have a grade 3 Vanguard without Masques in its card name, you can reveal a grade 3 card with Masques in its card name from hand, and ride the card revealed for this cost as stand. And if you rode, you put this card into the soul, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and you did not Persona Ride this turn, you activate Persona Ride. So this card does allow you to Persona Ride into your Mask form, which you would not be able to achieve if you just normal rode into that card, since obviously it has a different name. This card also allows you to potentially Persona Ride 1 turn sooner, on turn 3 if you went second, which is usually the best case scenario for this deck. This deck really can struggle going first, especially with soul resources. So going second is definitely the goal there. And if you go second on turn 3, if you have your pieces set up, you can go ahead and use this to superior Persona Ride into Lianorn Masques. And you should be able to get your full 5 attacks in at that point, with all of them hitting some pretty decent numbers. So that is the best case scenario for this deck. So hopefully you can pull that off with some sort of consistency. So then lastly for the grade 3s, I am just running one copy of our normal order Regales piece, Gradius Gradal. So it is a Regales piece, so you can have one in your deck and use it one time in a fight. And you can play it if you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Persona Ride and you did not ride this turn. And it lets you activate Persona Ride. So this is just another way to consistently get that Persona Ride off, since like I said, it's very important that you get that in order to be able to hit any kind of decent numbers. So on the turn after you initially ride into Lianorn Masques, if you don't have another copy in your hand to ride into, you could potentially have this to still be able to get the Persona Ride off that way. So making that just a little bit more consistent is very, very helpful for this deck. So that is all the grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we have 4 copies of Dragon Tree Wretch, Depth Ewelleth. So he has his auto ability that says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you can Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1 to choose one of your rearguard circles without any Dragon Tree markers and put a Dragon Tree marker. Then you search your deck for up to 1 Masque of Hydragrum, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your deck. So a very vital card in this deck, letting you generate a Dragon Tree marker and get Masque of Hydragrum into your hand. Which I'll throw up a screenshot of the Dragon Tree markers. They just give any unit on that circle 5k during your turn if your Vanguard has Dragon Tree or Masques in its card name. So again, another way to help strengthen those front row units, which is very important since most of the time they'll be attacking unboosted, so every little bit helps in that regard. Also, it is the way to search out your Masque of Hydragrum, so that is one of your key combo pieces, so this card can allow you to get it into your hand a lot more consistently. Now, again, the biggest problem with this card is it is a Soul Blast cost, again, which stacks with all the other ones. It costs a Counterblast too, but Counterblast aren't as tight in this deck. So again, you have to be very careful and monitor your soul count when using all these abilities, and make sure you don't end up screwing yourself and end up locking you out of some of these abilities. But yeah, a vital card overall for the deck in gathering your key pieces and setting up your plays. So next we have 4 copies of Luster Impact Dragon. So he has a continuous ability that says during your turn, if your back row has 2 or more grade 1 or less rearguards, this unit gets boost and power plus 5,000. And then he also has his auto ability that says once per turn, when this unit stands by the ability of your Vanguard with Granthea or Lianorn in its card name, if your Vanguard's power is 33,000 or greater, you can Soul Blast 1 to draw a card, and this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So this is a very versatile card for this deck. Ideally you want to have it in the front row when you're on Lianorn Masques, since you'll be restanding him to attack again, which will trigger his second ability. So you'll get that extra draw power, and the restanding ability also gives him another 5k on top of his first ability, giving him 5k. So he should be at a minimum of 20k at that point, 25 if you have him setting on a Dragon Tree marker, and potentially more if you Persona Road or whatever. So he can hit some decent numbers, he can make for a good attacker, he can be a nice draw engine for the deck. He can give himself boost if you have at least 2 grade 1s in your back row. So if you need help filling up that back row in order to have your deck not entirely brick, since you need to boost Lianorn with 3 units, and you have a copy of him that you need to fill in the back row with, he can be a booster back there as well. If on turn 3 you're still on OG Lianorn and you have the extra soul for it, you can have him in your back row as well on that turn to still get the draw off of him. But of course, as always, the biggest problem with this card is, of course, it is yet another Soul Blast cost. So you have to keep your eye on that soul, like I've said many times. Now, once you superior Persona ride into Lianorn Masques, Soul isn't as bad at that point, since doing that combo gets you 2 more cards into your Soul, the OG Lianorn that you rode over, and the Mask order going to your Soul. But prior to that especially, Soul can get very, very tight. But yeah, Soul problems aside, this card is one of the most important cards in the deck, being a vital offensive piece, and just a very versatile piece on your board all around. So then lastly for the Grade 2s, we have 3 copies of Tideline Dragon. So he has an activate ability that says once per turn, if you Persona Road this turn, you can Soul Blast 1 to choose one of your other units, and that unit and this unit get power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So this ability is only active on turns where you Persona Ride, but if you Persona Ride into Lianorn Masques, then between that Persona Ride power up and his skill, it can give your 2 front row rear guards an extra 20,000 power each. So that is the best offensive combo in this deck in order to power them up to at least 30 to 35k. So that'll make your 5 attacks for that turn all hitting very nice numbers and forcing a lot of shield out of your opponent. Now, once again, you guessed it, he is a Soul Blast cost. So again, you know, be mindful of that. But he's pretty much your main offensive piece on your big Persona Ride turns. I try to have him and Luster Impact in my front row to hit the best numbers as possible and potentially get Luster's draw off of it as well. So yeah, a very important offensive piece for this deck. I have considered bumping this up to 4 and maybe dropping Luster Impact down to 3, but I am just keeping the ratios as they are for right now. So that is all the Grade 2s. Moving on to the Grade 1s. First off, we have 4 copies of Forest Protecting Hunter Prosper. So he has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle by a card's ability, you may Soul Charge 1. So a very much needed ability in this deck, letting you build up some more soul. Now he does have to be superior called in order to get that ability off. So you can call him from your drop with Rectina on turn 3 when you ride into Lianorn. If you have him in your hand, you can superior call him from your hand with Lianorn's activate ability to get this off. You can revive him from your drop once with Lianorn Masques. Or we're also running Diantha in this deck, so you can use her ability to revive him from the drop as well. So that's all the different ways you can set this ability off. But I try to always open with a copy of this card, if possible, during my mulligan, since you definitely want to have at least 1 copy of it to hopefully call off a Rectina. So seeing it early game is very, very nice, especially if you see 2 copies of it, because then you can drop 1 for your ride deck, revive it with Rectina, and then call the second copy from your hand with Leonor's activate ability. And that should give you plenty enough soul to do your early combos that you need to tide you over until you can do your superior Persona ride. But yeah, this first ability is definitely one of the most important ones in the deck for that resource management. But he also has a second auto ability that says when this unit boosts, if you have a Vanguard with Lianorn in its card name, you choose a unit in the same column as this unit, and it gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So still a very helpful ability in this deck, not as helpful as with OG Lianorn, since, you know, when you're on that farm, he can be restood in your back row and boost twice to trigger this ability twice in 1 turn. So when you're on Lianorn Masques, he will only be boosting once per turn, so that ability will only trigger once. But he can still essentially be a 5k booster to the rear guard in front of him, which, again, you want to get those front row rear guards to as high numbers as possible. So every little bit helps in that regard. And of course on turn 3, if you are on the OG Lianorn, then you still can do the double instance of this ability on that turn to power up the unit in front of him by 10k. So definitely one of the most important cards in this deck. So next we got 2 copies of Spouting Intimacy Omlia. So she has a continuous ability that says during your turn, if your Vanguard is Servitude of Funeral Procession Lianorn Masques, this unit gets power plus 5,000, and a new auto ability that says at the end of the battle your Vanguard attacked, you can Soul Blast 1 and retire this unit, and countercharge 1. So this card is the countercharge engine for this deck, which this deck isn't as Counterblast heavy as it is Soul Blast heavy, but we do have quite a few Counterblast abilities as well. And of course our Vanguard requires a Counterblast now too. So if you don't have any face-up damage, then your Vanguard basically won't be able to do anything. So having this as that extra counter charge option still can be helpful. She is a -1 since she retires herself, and she is yet again another Soul Blast cost. But that's still better than your Vanguard not being able to restand anything at all. So still can be a helpful card for the deck. And of course, even if you're not using that part of her ability, she still can just be a 13k body on your board. So still a very helpful card. So next we got 2 copies of Performing Petal Diantha. So her auto ability says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from hand, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can Counterblast 1 to choose a grade 3 or less card from your drop and call it to rearguard circle. So just a simple revival ability, letting you grab anything you want from your drop and getting it back onto your board. She does have to be called from hand to activate this, so if you revive her with Rectina or Lianorn's ability or whatever, then you won't be able to activate her if you call her from the drop. And while she's on your rearguard circle, she also has her continuous ability that says during your return, if you have 2 or more grade 1 or less rearguards in your back row, this unit gets power plus 5,000. So again, another 13k body on your board to either be a nice booster or a attacker in your front row if you need her to be. So the only other grade ones we have are our Sentinels. So first off, we have 3 copies of Custodial Dragon, just your standard Perfect Guard, as well as 1 copy of the Nationless Splitsorter Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying the cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. So that's all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s, we just have our trigger lineup, which I am just running rainbow triggers for this deck. So I got 4 crits, 3 fronts, 4 draw, 4 heal, and 1 over. If you want to replace those fronts with crits, you could go that route, but I'm just sticking with rainbow triggers for the moment. So for the crits, we have 4 copies of Aspiring Maiden Alana. So crit with a skill, at the end of the battle it boosted, you can put it into your soul to choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 2,000 until end of turn. So it can be a way to get some more soul if you need it in an emergency. Next for the fronts, we have 3 copies of Frenzied Heiress. So front with a skill, if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, gets shield plus 5,000. So your 20k shield front trigger. Next for the draws, we have 4 copies of Serene Maiden Lena. So same ability, if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, shield plus 5,000. So your 10k shield draw trigger. Next for the heals, we have 4 copies of Flowery Tone. So just the vanilla heal. Of course, if you want to run any effect heals, you can. And then lastly for the over trigger, we have Source Dragon Deity of Blessings, Bless Favor. So his additional effect lets you draw a card, choose one of your units, it gets critical plus 1 until end of turn. All of your front row units get power plus 10,000. And if your damage zone has the same number of cards as your opponent's or more, you choose a card from your damage zone and heal it. So your crit, front, draw, and heal all rolled into 1. So that is the deck. So we will go ahead and have our one fight with it. And I think we'll fight Yui this time. And we will be going second. Alright, so we're gonna discard Prosper to ride. And Corfy's skill lets us draw. So then I am going to go ahead and call Omlia. And then we'll attack with the Vanguard first. And we'll get a draw trigger. So power to Omlia. And we draw one. So then we'll attack with Omlia. She lets that one through too. Oh, but she pulls her over trigger. That nullified that damage. And let her draw. So then she searches out romantic happiness to put in her order zone. Sets matter red runway as well. So I'll let this one through. And I'll let that one through too. She gets a heal trigger when she does get. And I'm just going to damage check all our prospers. So, as much as I hate to, I think I'm going to have to let that one through too. Alright, so we'll discard one of these draws to ride Rectina. And Gracia's skill will let us call her to back row center. So let's see, we'll go ahead and call Luster Impact over here, and then move him up. And he gains 5k since we got 2 grade 1s in the back row. So then we'll just go ahead and attack with the Vanguard first. So then we'll attack with Luster Impact. And she goes. Plays another matter red runway, and she sings it to give her Vanguard an extra crit, and then she plays 6 flower fractal from her hand, so that'll set her up for next turn. So let's see, I am going to let this one through. And there goes our last Prosper. Wow. Alright, so that's 2 crits, so I'm gonna perfect guard that one. And she gets a critical trigger. And as much as I hate to, I'm going to perfect guard that one too with Sanctitude. So we'll have to discard Masque of Hydragrum. Now we drew another copy of it. Alright, so I'm gonna drop... And we'll drop that Regales piece, I guess. To ride Lianorn. And Rectina's skill, Soul Blast. And we can superior call one from the drop, so we'll call Prosper. And his skill, let us Soul Charge. So then I am going to go ahead and play Masque of Hydragrum. And we check the top 5, and we do find a copy of Lianorn Masques. So we'll grab her. And we'll use OG Lianorn's Activate ability to Counter Blast. And we can draw one and call one. So we drew Depth of Welleth. So I'm going to go ahead and call Tide Line though. So then from our drop, we can activate Masque of Hydragrum's ability to Superior Persona Ride. Into Lianorn Masques. So that gives our front row 10k and Amelie a 5k thanks to her ability. So then we'll activate Tideline Dragon skill and Soul Blast out OG Lianorn. And we will target Luster. So both him and Tideline gain an extra 10k. And with that, I think we are good. So we will go ahead and attack with Tideline first, not boosted. So next we'll attack with Luster, not boosted. So then we can attack with Lianorn Masques, not boosted as well, because we're going to use her ability and have her be boosted with our entire back row. Bring her to 57,000. And then Prosper skill will let us give 5k to Tideline. And we get a heal trigger, which we desperately needed. So we're going to heal 1, and we will give that power to Tideline. And she gets a draw trigger. So then we're going to use Lianorn Masques' ability to Counter Blast. And we will restand Luster and Tideline, which triggers Luster's ability to let us Soul Blast 1 again. And draw. And he gains another 5k. And we are not going to use Amelia's skill right now. So instead we're going to attack with Luster once again for 40,000. So that's that one through 2. And she gets a crit trigger. So then we'll attack with Tideline for 45,000. And she guards. She just needed 1 trigger to guard that since she got 2 damage triggers. So again, she sings her song to gain a crit. So let's see, we will guard this one with one of these Lusters. And that attack can't hit, she's just attacking with it to restand it with 6 Flower Fractal and give our Vanguard more power. Because she can now sing another song, which will let her restand her rear guards and give Lianorn 20k and guard restrict, which we don't have any sentinels in her hand anyway. So let's see, we will guard with those 2 triggers. And she gets a crit trigger. And let's see, I am going to guard with Luster, and then we'll also intercept with the other Luster. And then I'll let that one through. Alright, so now we can Persona Ride. And then we'll call our Dragon Tree Wretch and use his ability to Counter Blast and Soul Blast. And we can place a Dragon Tree marker, so we will put that on his regard circle. And we don't have any more copies of our mask in the deck. But we can use Tideline's ability once again to Soul Blast. And give Depth a Welleth and Tideline an extra 10k. So with that, I think we are good, so we'll go ahead and attack with Tideline first, not boosted. And then we can attack with Depth a Welleth, again, not boosted. And she guards and intercepts. So then we'll attack with Lianorn Masques, once again, not boosted, because we'll use her ability to boost with our entire back row. Which again lets Prosper's ability give 5k to Tideline Dragon. And she guards and intercepts with Elmers. So their skills are going to give them a lot of shield, because they gain 5k for each song in her order zone. But we get a crit trigger, but that's not enough to go through, and I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to give both effects to Tideline. So then Lianorn Mask skill will let us Counter Blast. And we can stand Depth a Welleth and Tideline. And I don't really need to, but I'm going to go ahead and use Omlia's skill just because I can. So we'll Soul Blast and retire her. And we can counter charge one. So then I'm going to attack with Tideline Dragon for 45,002 crit. And she's got to let it through. Oh, she gets a miracle heal. But she needs one more, because that was 2 crit. And she doesn't get it, so we got her with that one. So there you go, that was my Lianorn Masques deck. Pretty fun deck. It can be very piece reliant and very resource heavy sometimes. But when it pops off, it is pretty fun to play. So I will be back soon with more deck profiles. Next up, I'll be doing version 2 of my Draw Jeweled deck, actually. So until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.